The two battle wagons tied up between cargo ships in the port. The low, sleek destroyers, bristling with the latest in military satellite communication equipment and guided missiles, are the home away from home for about 700 sailors and officers. Both ships served in the Vietnam War. The Brisbane joined the multinational forces in the Persian Gulf. The destroyers have just completed exercises off Tasmania. The ships were given a special welcome this morning. Families of those on board crowded for a glimpse of sons, brothers and loved ones. Able seaman Robert Mulholland signed on 2 years ago, but this is his first trip back to his home port. There was shore leave for some, a welcome mail drop for others. The ships are on a tour of the east coast before heading for Southeast Asian waters. The gangplank of HMAS Brisbane will be down for visitors from 1 o'clock on Sunday. Andrew Lobb, NBN News. The ceremony was conducted at Ambulance headquarters in Sydney. The pomp and pageantry a far cry from the anguished moments over the past year when officers have stared death in the eye and brought other lives back from the brink.
An ambulance officer is a role model in the community. Although people hope never to need your services, they certainly look up to you and respect you.
Presented with commendations and medals, officers stepped forward as brief descriptions of their deeds only hinted at the nightmarish situations confronted, such as paramedic Alan Playford and David Fitzclarence working under flames and fallen power lines in an attempt to rescue 2 electricity workers. A Distinguished Service Medal went to Louise Bishop, who, along with Lorraine Ramsey, Ken Isles and Anthony Miller, attempted to save a youth buried alive in a crumbling sand hole. Terry McKendry and John Gleeson survived the crash of a rescue helicopter in the Barrington Mountains and spent 2 days locating and treating lost bushwalkers. William Creevy, who winched a patient to safety from a helicopter in appalling conditions, Neil Walker from Dorrigo and Peter Engley from the state's northwest also received awards.
With faith in you and in each other, they pledge their love today. May their lives always bear witness to the reality of that love. And in health, to love her and honour her all the days of your life.
Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
The changes start with the backs. Robbie O'Davis has secured the job of fullback, forcing Brad Godden out onto the wing. Captain Michael Hagan moves to centre and Matthew Johns slots in as 5'8". The new hitmen, Rodney Howe and Adam Muir, are back in the side after a disciplined game last week. Muir in particular made some impressive bursts through the St George defence, and he will now be hard to shake from the side. The town has to offer, but a few of them will have trembling knees just before match time, thanks to supermodel Elle Macpherson. The game has been moved back to 7:30 to make sure the body can perform the honours of kicking off.
Residents of Head and Greta, a small town north of Newcastle, were shocked by the news. Neighbours say 29-year-old Sandra Millard and her 2 children, 7-year-old Jessica and 5-year-old Jared, had just moved into their Adams Street home 6 weeks ago. A quiet family that kept to themselves.
But that's about it.
Police believe a man entered the house around 5:30 this morning, threatening the mother with a knife. He then forced her into the family car, leaving her 2 terrified children behind. When their mother failed to return, the children rode their push bikes 4 kilometres to a friend's place. It was more than 3 hours after the abduction before police were alerted.
Friends then came down to the house, found that the lady was missing, and then contacted police. The police arrived here about 9:20 and inquiries are continuing.
Pole Air was called in to search the area for an 86 model white Ford Falcon sedan, registration SM2286. The description of the abductor only brief.
Medium height, wearing black tracksuit pants and a red-green-brown jumper. And he had short, dark hair. That's the only description we have at the present time.
Late this afternoon, fingerprints were examined. Anyone who may have seen the wanted vehicle is asked to contact police. Melinda Smith, NBN News. These students are taking part in a creative thinking exercise, attempting to solve problems that can stump the best of minds. Next month, a group of Merewether High students will test their wits with the world's best at the International Odyssey of the Minds title held at the University of Maryland in the United States. It's an educational thinking program for students from kindergarten to university. Solutions are found, teaching methods are changed, and students emerge from the experience as the problem solvers of the future.
The seminar was called Reaching the Betrayed Generation. Mal Garvin, creator of the radio program Breakthrough Generation, was the key speaker.
What we're doing is asking people from the whole mid-north coast to come together and think about young people in this region. We believe they've basically been betrayed. Many of them have no hope of employment, but what can we as a community come together and do to care for them?
Youth from Taree, Kempsey and Port Macquarie took part, together with workers involved with teenagers. Workshops were held with talks about Australian culture and its values. The seminar also taught people how to run businesses, such as a youth cafe. Organisers say they are keen to hold more youth seminars and help install trust back into the people who claim they are the betrayed generation.
I think it's time enough we got off our aortas as Aussies. Too long we've said, aorta, do something about it. Now, what we're saying is local communities, if you don't make these kids your problem, they will become your problem.
Well, I've lived here for 20 years and it's just an ideal spot for kids, ideal spot for everyone to have a picnic.
It's just so peaceful. Our beaches are beautiful.
We came to Boat Harbour and it was just such a lovely place. We've made our home here.
Progress may have finally caught up with Boat Harbour. It's now overshadowed by plans for several large housing subdivisions. One was close to being approved by council until residents decided to dig in and fight. They're concerned about growing population density, the destruction of native flora and fauna habitat, and increased pollution runoff into the bay.
So eventually we're going to have a simple mud hole here, and that's all it'll be. It'll be completely polluted and it won't be any good to anybody. We'd really hate to see it developed in an unplanned way in which put too much pressure on the natural amenities we do have.
Boat Harbour is a narrow wedge of land buffered by national parks. Its ridgelines command prized coastal views. Many would prefer to see the land resumed as national park and are determined not to see it carved up.
Boat Harbour is not anti-development. Boat Harbour, I think, is sympathetic It's in sympathy with the existing peaceful nature of Boat Harbour, and also in sympathy with the surrounding bushland and the national park.
It is a decision which can affect a school leaver's future. Do you go to university? And if so, which is the best course and institution for your needs? It's a minefield which was made a little easier today with this expo at City Hall. Universities from throughout the country were represented, as well as TAFE and business colleges.
They've given us lots of information about university life and TERs and things like that.
It's very helpful because they show what TER you do have to get for the required course and the type of accommodation available at universities at different places.
You've been able to wander around and different people from different universities have been able to give you different ideas about things and help you decide.
With the national unemployment level at almost 11%, it's important students consider their future careers carefully.
The bottom line is the more training you do, the greater chance of getting a job and the more jobs there are available.
Al Green was taking it easy today, a little sore and sorry after the weekend game against the Gold Coast Rollers. With just minutes to go, he copped an accidental elbow from teammate Kruger, the worst hit he's had in more than 15 years of top-class competition.
I was seeing stars for a few seconds and it was really hurting, and I just asked the coach, did he think it was broke? He said, yes, it is broke.
While he finished the game, he needed surgery to get the face pushed back into shape.
I told the doctor yesterday when he was have a job like Michael Jackson, a nose like his. I don't think he caught on to it.
Jokes aside, it's down to the serious business of maintaining the Falcons' unbeaten record at home this season. Green will be fitted with a special protective mask for the game against the Cannons on Saturday night at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre. Canberra is coming off a win, the Falcons 2 away game losses.
But I think at home, it's more the fans, the crowd at home will help us out a little more, bring us home to win.
Nearly every morning for the past 22 years, Max Lees has stood on these steps, watching the sun come up and the rising future of his horses. The vigilance is paying dividends because at the moment he is second in the Sydney Trainers Premiership. So far he has trained 34 Metropolitan winners and 115 winners statewide.
I've been pretty lucky this year. I've had a good string of horses and they've held up pretty good, so I just hope they can hold up for the next 2 months and keep going, you know.
Lees is very much a hands-on trainer, and the number of winners he's had has rocked the establishment, a trainer from outside the elite Sydney dress circle coming up with consistent performers. With only 2 months to go until the end of the season, it's believed the Sydney trainers will now try and squeeze him out with sheer weight of entries.
Oh, they'll be trying pretty hard, yeah. They like to keep their position up there and they'll have plenty of runners.
Lee's success has the potential to draw hundreds of thousands of dollars to Newcastle by giving horse owners a viable training alternative. But his own future isn't secure at Broadmeadow as the racecourse goes through a financial crisis. In the meantime, he will continue his Metro assault with 3 good horses set for runs tomorrow and Saturday.
They breed them tough in the bush, but even the hardest characters are feeling the pressure in drought-affected northern New South Wales. 23% of the state is in trouble, from Merriwa north to the border. Farmers unable to keep feed up to their sheep and cattle, unable to maintain water supplies. This week an appeal has been launched to try and give some hope to people on the land.
It was the instigation of NBN Television. They approached the Farmers Association for some assistance in putting it together.
An NBN Drought Appeal Committee has been formed with 7 high-profile members of the rural community. This advertisement will be broadcast across the region. The money will go to feeding stock either through buying fodder or setting up agistment. Farmers can pick up application forms from their local rural lands protection boards. The tragedy of dying animals must be stopped.
We have to make as many of those animals come through this drought. Lord knows how much longer it'll last, but we've got to get the stock through the drought.
Money can be donated through any branch of the Commonwealth Bank. Any amount, no matter how large or small, can help relieve the crisis of drought in northern New South Wales.
For the residents in James Patterson Drive at Anna Bay, the backyard views are dominated by these daunting sandhills.
The last 2 years, I've been here 4. The last 2, they're really coming down at a rate.
These 32 kilometres of sandhills are moving northward along the Stockton Bight at a rate of 4 metres a year. By those calculations, that means these properties here would have sand in their backyards in as little as 3 years. To keep the sand at bay, the Department of Conservation and Land Management is spearheading a major dune reshaping and stabilisation program.
Over the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to extract all of the sand immediately behind the houses and move the main dune some 100 metres or so further west or away from the houses, and then stabilise that. And that will leave us a great deal of safety margin for these houses.
More than 120,000 tonnes of sand will be moved, with some of it being used on local building projects. And tufts of marram grass are being planted into the dunes. And the residents are happy. Those sand hills that have been creeping ever closer to their properties are being shovelled into retreat.
I think so, yeah. I mean, the dune's not a real good asset to have in your backyard, so with the removal, I think, yeah, could be good.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The under-25 team was out for its final training session last night before Saturday's match. And what better way than to play a game against local A-grade side Beach Hotel. Last year, the first time the Steel City Challenge was held, Newcastle came home victorious. And coach Helen Grogan says this year they intend to repeat the performance. The team, which is actually the Newcastle representative side, is known as a fast-moving attacking team. And that's the strategy they plan to practice on Saturday. It's a tall side, the average height around 175 centimetres or 5'10". This comes in handy in the goal circle, especially with goal shooter Fiona Wilton, who stands at 6 foot. Saturday's game will also give the girls valuable match practice in preparation for the state championships on the June long weekend. Newcastle will play Illawarra at 2:45 on Saturday afternoon at the National Park Courts. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The Family Support Service was officially opened at its new premises in Alexander Street today. It caters for a cross-section of the community, offering counselling and information on a wide range of needs, from budgeting to domestic violence.
A lot more families are finding it harder to cope financially and also emotionally with the strain that's been placed on them by their changed economic circumstances.
Social worker Gabriella Den Hollander says demand for services has increased in the last 12 months. The unit was forced to move from its former premises because its landlord, the Hunter Area Health Service, sold the building.
From the start of the game, Paul Harrigan made it clear he wasn't sore from the game against Parramatta less than 30 hours before. He was in everything and well on the way to snatching man of the match points. 20 minutes in and Martin Bella refused to let him pack into a scrum and tempers flared. Both of them were marched to the sin bin. Harrigan was back on the field for only a minute when he went in for a try, his first in 2 years. The Chief flew back home this afternoon, happy the Blues won the series, but disappointed he was involved in a fight.
Just one of those scrums, you know, where the niggling starts, and I'll just put that one down to experience here.
How do you feel towards Martin Bella now?
Just the same.
The altercation, though, won't affect his selection for the Australian team.
Nothing officially, but I'm fairly confident.
While Harrigan was running around Lang Park, his club captain was struggling to walk. Michael Hagan spent the day having x-rays and physio after he injured his back against Parramatta. The film showed he slipped a disc in his lower back. The only cure, plenty of rest. So far, Hagan has played 99 consecutive games for the Knights, but his milestone 100th could be put on hold.
I certainly won't jeopardise any further damage by playing too soon, and I'll be guided by what Neil thinks and how physio progresses in the next week.
The split round could work in his favour. The Knights don't meet Canterbury for another 2 weeks. It's one of the longest walks Craig Mealer from Waratah Mayfield has ever made, into the Judiciary Room at the Newcastle League. Sunday was only his second game back after he was cited and found guilty of this tackle against West's Tim Perrin early last month. On Sunday, he belted Wayne Harvey, knocking him senseless, while Harvey stared skywards trying to catch a bomb. Mealer and coach Cole Love explained it was just an unfortunate accident and Mealer should be given the benefit of the doubt. But no matter how many times they showed the video, the judiciary wasn't convinced and suspended him for 8 weeks. While Mealer was watching his season disappear in front of him, Dean Crichton from Charlestown paced up and down, knowing he was on the same charge, deliberately striking an opponent. The judiciary heard the South player was concussed by the punch and taken from the field by ambulance. Considering his previously good record, Crichton was suspended for 4 weeks.
And the leader, Music of Fortune, doing a great job in front. In second place on the mark, but Music of Fortune in no danger. And Music of Fortune by 2 lengths on the line to on the mark. 4 or 5 lengths away to Nebenamus, Bower Girl, followed by Ranella. And then came Nelson Blue, followed up by Inarella.
Judy Gordon does not think she's anything special, but many would disagree. Last night, Judy was awarded 3 medals for excellence in her tertiary studies: the Manufacturing Medal, the Newcastle City Council Hunter Institute Medal, and a medal for topping the state. To achieve all this, Judy has attended TAFE for 4 years. In the last 12 months, as well as 11 hours of lectures a week, she's also spent up to 30 hours studying. Not a bad effort, really, especially when you consider that Judy also works full-time as a laboratory assistant, is a mother of 8 children, and helps run 2 small businesses from her Williamtown home.
They've had to learn to cook meals, vacuum the floors, do dishes, do the washing. Yes, a lot of give and take.
Judy says she always loved science, but until recently did not have an opportunity to pursue her interest.
I was always interested in science at school, but I was living in a small country town, there wasn't the opening for it. And when the family got older, I thought, right, let's give it a go.
And give it a go, she certainly did. But Judy doesn't think she's done anything special.
The 5-ton tipper is regularly parked at the spot off the western side of the Pacific Highway on a bend in the road near the intersection with Dalrymple Street. The young woman was driving north around 7:30 last night when, in torrential rain, her Ford Laser skidded off the carriageway, the driver's side front corner of the car hitting the rear of the truck. She suffered a serious head injury, and rescue services spent some time stabilising her condition before extricating her from the wreckage. The woman, 22-year-old Natalie Vetter of Hinton Road at Raymond Terrace, was taken to the John Hunter Hospital, where she remains in the intensive care ward in a critical condition.
It's the season when motorists are using their headlights more often and consequently forgetting to turn them off. The NRMA has noticed a marked increase in calls from people whose car batteries have subsequently gone flat.
It means that our road service demand is quite up on those days, and it's up somewhere in the percent of some 40% on calls. And what it does to members who are broken down for other reasons, it delays the NRMA getting there.
The NRMA is urging people to remember to turn off their headlights. A car battery can go flat in a matter of hours.
Depends on the size of the battery, obviously, the size of the car, and also what condition the battery was in prior to you leaving your lights on. So it could range anything from a couple of hours to half a day.
While the battery can be recharged, every time it goes flat, the life expectancy of the battery is shortened.
The forum was organised by Newcastle City Council and the Clean Air Society of Australia and New Zealand. It was a chance to hear experts in the field and for residents to air concerns about pollutants present in their suburbs. Among those having a say were residents from Bullaroo, Mayfield and Stockton. Those suburbs will also be the focus of a study soon to be undertaken by the Toxicology Unit of the Department of Health.
The study involves the investigation of whether the air pollution levels in the Wollongong and Newcastle areas are associated with any change in the symptoms of children with asthma.
Evidence already suggests high levels of pollution affect asthma, but what about lower levels like we have here in the Hunter?
Asthma is very common. It's of concern, particularly to parents, that air pollution levels may be affecting their children. As I said, it's considered to play quite a small role, if any, but we think it's important that we resolve that question for them.
Pilot studies will begin within a few months, but the real work will come towards the end of this year and the beginning of next year, when more than 1,000 students will be asked to take part.
In early next year, we would start to ask children with asthma and their parents to participate in a study in which they fill out diaries about their asthma symptoms, and at the same time we measure the level of air pollution every day, and at the end of the study see if there's a relationship between those symptoms and the levels of air pollution that we've measured.
Similar studies will also be carried out in the Illawarra region, which also has a strong industrial base. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
It can at times be a thankless task, players going for the umpire's throat after a close decision. But Anthony Angel from the Lake Macquarie suburb of Caves Beach has risen above that.
My main worry is you try and laugh everything off, but you've got to be careful not to laugh on court. Because if you laugh in front of the player, well, then it stirs them up. So you just treat it all as fun.
He started umpiring 3 years ago in the Newcastle competition. He's obviously turned a few heads, recently being selected as a linesman or umpire for the US Open. He leaves in 2 months for Flushing Meadow in New York, mixing with America's high society and the greats of the game. Anthony will be paid $150 a day for the work. Tennis fans at the Open will be paying out that much just to see the top players in the world in action. He's one of 4 umpires selected from Australia, 300 from around the world. A true tennis fan at heart, the university student hopes to eventually make a living out of umpiring. It's a dream come true to be courtside at the US Open. If he's lucky, he'll catch his favourite player in action trying to defend his title.
Stefan Edberg's always been my favourite. He's cool, calm and collected and doesn't argue. So
You like him when they don't argue?
Always go for the cool ones.
The splendour of Tomaree on a crisp, sun-drenched early winter morning. 3 Control and Reporting Unit has commissioned the Lloyd's chopper to airlift the remnants of the old air warning station from atop the headland. 3CAU's mission, a 4-month restoration of the relic, first for temporary display at the RAF's Fighter World Museum. It'll then be relocated to its original concrete footing on the hill as part of what the National Parks and Wildlife Service calls its World War II fortification interpretation, planned for the whole headland area. It doesn't look much, a far cry from today's Perspex-enclosed ultra-high-tech radars, little more than chicken wire on an angle iron frame, in fact. 2 of these sails, with a rudimentary radar transmitter mounted in front, were attached to a swivelable cast-iron support. It was one of a cordon of 135 such air-warning radar stations across the north coast and down the east coast of Australia. Little remains of them, but at least this one will be around for future generations to see the way things were.